and SUV drivers in select terminals.
Passengers are converging here at Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange or PITX. Some have arrived early just to book their trips. The terminal this Friday morning met quite a surprise as mandatory random drug tests dubbed Oplan Harabas were conducted. Randomly selected bus drivers were first on the list. Fortunately, they tested negative.
Okay yan, pero yung ibang mga driver na adik, hindi nila alam, di ba? Pero mahuli sila. Kasi marami yan dyan eh. Hindi naman. Kasi hindi naman ako nag-drugs.
Tama to, mas maganda nga to para ang pasahero, safety rin. Dahil dala ng driver ang buhay ng mga pasahero.
A total of 200 bus drivers, operators, and conductors underwent random drug testing at PITX. However, based on PIDEA report, there were 8 individuals who tested positive of illegal drugs at MOA. Their driver's licenses were confiscated.
Part ito ng demand reduction campaign natin, particularly kung mapatunayan natin na positive sila, papasok doon yung rehabilitation and reintegration program.
If a driver tests positive, he will undergo a series of counseling and rehabilitation. Still, some passengers were disappointed with the random test which resulted in some inconvenience.
Humingi tayo ng paumanhin, no, at konting pangunawa sa ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na doon sa ating mga passengers. No. Admittedly, nagkaroon ng konting inconvenience to, pero sana maunawaan po nila.
There were also canine dogs sweeping bus terminals to detect different types of illegal drugs. Meanwhile, PITX management recorded an average of 91,000 returning passengers this past 6 days. This weekend, the terminal expects this to go over 100,000 passengers, even from Holy Monday to Wednesday. With the terminal having 2,000 to 2,500 bus units, passengers can book trips via online or in ticketing booths. While buses are not yet fully booked, plans to even augment the number of bus units are in place in case the need for it arises next week. Following minimum health protocols like social distancing and wearing a face mask remain a must for everyone. Stanley Gaete, CNN Philippines.
From bus terminals to the country's main gateway, passengers are also filling the Ninoy Aquino International Airport, many of them traveling for the first time in 2 years. More from Tristan Odalo.
Airport officials are beefing up security measures ahead of the expected influx of travelers during the Holy Week and summer vacation season. And while restrictions have been eased in many parts of the country, officials remind the public that we are still in the middle of a pandemic situation.
Despite the gloomy, rainy weather and waiting in the queue for hours at NAIA Terminal 3, some families and travelers express excitement over their travel plans pushing through, like Misty and 9 of her family members who are bound for Boracay on Friday. She says this is her first travel with family, including kids, since the pandemic happened.
Para po may peace of mind. Mama ko, ate ko, husband ko, anak ko, mga pamangkin ko. Super excited.
Angel Timosa couldn't wait to be reunited with his son and grandchildren in Iloilo. He and his wife are taking the opportunity to travel back to their home province ahead of the influx of passengers come Holy Week.
Excited kami na makita yung apo, gano'n. Kasi siyempre sa tagal ba naman na may parang hindi sapat yung sa kung na kinag-uusap sa cellphone eh. Iba talaga yung makakauwi at nakikita mo sila ng personal eh.
Cagayan de Oro-bound passenger Rodolfo Pancrudo also returns to Mindanao after being stranded by the community lockdown for 2 years. He hopes things will be returning to normal soon.
Mag-uliwik kami sa Mindanao. Alam na, matagal na kaming hindi nakapunta doon. Walang problema ang biyahe kasi maganda naman ang biyahe ngayon dahil maski sa traffic. Galing kaming Quezon.
Travel documents are being thoroughly checked at the entrance. Passengers are also reminded to comply with the minimum health standards. Screening, surveillance, and communication equipment have been checked ahead of the influx of passengers starting this Palm Sunday.
For the entire months of April and May, airport officials will conduct extensive security screening and passenger assistance operations under the Oplan Biyaheng Ayos. Officials also remind the public to check in their flight details with their airlines before going to the airport. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
And to those heading out, we remind you to take extra caution on the road. You can still expect cloudy skies with scattered rain showers because of a low-pressure area. Pag-asa says this will be in the Visayas, Caraga, Northern Mindanao, Zamboanga Peninsula, Mimaropa, Bicol, and Quezon Province. Cloudy skies with rains and isolated light rains are forecast over the northern parts of Luzon. The areas are on your screens. Metro Manila and the rest of the country will have partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers. Pag-asa warns of the possible entry of Tropical Storm Malakas into the country. It was last spotted over 2,200 kilometers east of Mindanao. COVID-19 transmission has plateaued in the country. Health spokesperson Maria Rosario Vergara explains infections are the lowest given the current situation. An average of 357 cases were reported daily from March 31st to April 6th. But Vergara and infectious diseases specialist Edsel Salvania says the numbers could still go up or down.
Ang key dyan, kailangan masustena natin ang plateauing o pagbaba pa o mapababa pa natin from that level through our minimum public health standards at pagbabakuna. So it's either bad or good. Kaya lang, kailangan, ang gusto natin, masustena yung good side, patuloy na pagbaba nito mga kaso.
Yung interventions is keeping the number of cases at a constant rate. So how do we improve that? We improve that by improving boosting, by improving adherence kung kakayanin pa. How will that get worse? If people start to relax, don't get boosted, mag-wane yung immunity at hindi gumamit ng mask.
The DOH also wants boosters for minors 12 to 17 years old. It has asked the Food and Drug Administration to amend the emergency use authority of the vaccines to include that age group. The department also awaiting FDA approval for the fourth COVID-19 shot for adults.
So yung fourth dose at saka yung booster shots for kids o yung 12 to 17. Atin lang pong inaantay ang Food and Drug Administration na maglabas ng amended EUA. Pag lumabas po ito, isusumite naman natin ito sa Health Technology Assessment Council para sa kanilang pagsusuri ukol dito sa mga sektor na ito. Once all of these processes are done, we can be able to issue out the guidelines.
The DOH plans to hold supplemental vaccinations of infants every last Thursday or Friday from April to June. It aims to inoculate 80% of 1.4 million infants 0 to 12 months old. Business process outsourcing or BPO companies and registered business enterprises or RBEs may extend their work from home setup. The Philippine Economic Zone Authority or PEZA says it is accepting applications for the hybrid work arrangement where 70% of the company's employees work on site and the remaining 30% work from home. PEZA says this arrangement is possible only until September 12th, when the extended state of calamity because of the COVID-19 pandemic is set to end. The Economic Zone regulator earlier required BPO firms to return to office by April 1st, an order which Finance Assistant Secretary Paula Alvarez said forced some companies to withdraw from PEZA. PEZA, however, says it is not true that registered firms have left the eco-zones. Up next, an update on detained Senator Laila de Lima, who granted an exclusive interview with CNN Philippines. And the Philippines and the U.S. conclude their biggest ever Balikatan exercises on the same day of President Duterte's virtual meeting with Chinese President or counterpart Xi Jinping.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Vice presidential candidate Lito Atienza apologizes to presidential Bet Ping Lacson for urging him to back out of the race. Atienza had suggested that both of them withdraw so Lacson's running mate, Senate President Tito Soto, can form a tandem with Senator Manny Pacquiao. Lacson has accepted the apology.
Hindi expected yung reaction ni Ping. He rejected the idea outright. He in fact considered it an insult. And I apologize publicly, sabi ko, hindi naman insulto yun. I did not mean to insult Ping. Huwag naman ikagalit ni Ping. Pero siya nakikita kung kailangan gumalaw. Still, a lot of time to think about it, pray about it, talk to people about it. Kung nananaisip niya na makatulong ng malaki pag naligtas ng ating bansa, magagawa ni Ping yan.
Vice President Leni Robredo attended an education forum in Pangasinan. She told the media on the sidelines of the event that lessons from the country's history should be included in the school curriculum.
The Marcos era. Pero marami pang ibang mga leksyon na dapat hindi na maulit. Na pag sinisiguro natin na ituturo ito sa mga kabataan, yung lahat na korupsyon na nangyari and how people reacted to corruption, dapat kabahagi ito para pati sa public officials, nawawarn sila na parating may sukdulan yung lahat na pinagagagawa.
Bongbong Marcos campaigned in eastern Visayas, where he saw an 8% drop in voter preference based on the latest Pulsation survey. He first visited Catarman City, northern Samar. Police say up to 7,000 supporters welcomed him there. There was no mayor present during the event since all 24 local chief executives in the province backed Robredo. Marcos was also in northern Samar, where he reiterated his call for unity, his vow to continue President Duterte's Build, Build, Build program, and his plan to lower electricity rates. The former senator will campaign in Biliran province next. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, who visited Zamboanga City, vowed there will be no war in the region if he wins the presidency.
It's a bold commitment, it's hard to fulfill, but we must seek for peace. Peace creates prosperity. Peace creates panatag ang komunidad. Kristiyano, Muslim, pwedeng magkasama, pwedeng mamuhay ng mapayapa.
Labor leader Leody de Guzman joined a protest calling on the Calabarzon Wage Board to raise the minimum wage from 400 to 750 pesos. De Guzman vowed to abolish provincial rates and push for a 750 peso minimum wage nationwide if he becomes president. Now, how does re-electionist Senator Laila de Lima campaign from behind bars? Amor Santos joins us live as she tells us about her up-close conversation with De Lima at the PNP Custodial Center in Camp Crame. Amor, as we know, De Lima has been in jail for more than 5 years because of on drug charges, which she says were politically motivated. What does she say about her limited chance to win votes?
Yes, Senator Laila de Lima called it a very, very uphill battle, but she's not losing hope. In the latest Pulse Asia survey, she ranked 21st to 28th, a far cry from the surveys leading to the 2016 polls, where she was consistent at the top 12. On February 28th, the court allowed De Lima to hold in-person meetings with her campaign team. It's the same court order that allowed her face-to-face media interviews, but without recording devices. In the remaining month before the election, she says her team will intensify the campaign, including house-to-house visits, although they are still trying to raise funds for TV advertisements. If given a chance to personally talk to voters, she wants to tell them about how she has fought and worked despite what she calls baseless charges against her. If elected to a second term, the senator says she will refile bills promoting justice and human rights. She says her hands are tied in detention as she fails to participate in committee hearings or plenary debates. She says she was expecting her colleagues in the majority to pass a resolution seeking her virtual participation in Senate hearings. But she said, quote, hindi nila ako sinuportahan, unquote. De Lima was arrested in February 2017, just 8 months into her term. Pia?
Yes, Amer, it's a rare media interview. The first time the court allowed the detained senator to take questions from the press. Can you tell us more about security and health protocols?
Well, Pia, we weren't allowed to bring in cameras or recording devices. And before entering the PNP Custodial Center, we were asked to present negative antigen tests and also proof of vaccination. It was a 1-hour interview in a separate air-conditioned room where she also meets with her staff and campaign team. Present during the interview was Fiscal Quincy Carandang. He made sure we won't discuss the merits of De Lima's pending cases. Pia.
Amer, De Lima had a medical checkup this week. How is her health, and what did the center say about the last 5 years in detention?
Well, Senator De Lima says at 62 years old, she's not in perfect health, but nothing serious or alarming in her medical tests. For her, her detention is both a blessing and a curse. She says she's now closer to God and appreciates the things she previously took for granted, such as time with family, and in her own words, she says she has, quote, mellowed. Yeah.
So, Amer, from Justice Secretary and Commission on Human Rights Chairperson, she's now facing drug charges. What is the status of these cases, and how does she expect them to proceed in the next administration?
Well, as we know, Pia, the court has dismissed 1 of 3 drug cases against De Lima. Her camp is set to present evidence for 1 case, while the court is still hearing her bail plea in another case. De Lima has high hopes she will be vindicated if Vice President Leni Robredo wins as president, saying it will create an environment of truth-telling. She admits she's, quote, extremely worried about a Bongbong Marcos presidency, saying it will be a regression to human rights abuses and corruption and will be bad for the economy. But she said she's not sure how interested the survey frontrunner is in her case.
Amer, De Lima, a staunch critic of President Duterte, and she even filed a communication with the International Criminal Court. What did she say about the suspension of the ICC probe?
Well, Pia, Senator Laila De Lima is disappointed with the suspension, but she believes the ICC has gathered enough information and that it will eventually issue a warrant of arrest against the chief executive. We also asked her if she has any message for President Duterte. She thought about it for a few seconds and said, "There will be a day of reckoning, Mr. President." Pia.
Amer Santos there reporting and filling us in on details on CNN Philippines' exclusive interview with detained Senator Laila De Lima. President Duterte and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping meeting virtually today. Details about what's being discussed by both leaders still not known. Public policy professor Eduardo Araral earlier told CNN Philippines that this may be an act of courtesy with only less than 3 months before Mr. Duterte's term ends. But the talks are happening in light of the recent Scarborough Shoal incident, the Ukraine-Russia war, and China's donation to President Duterte's Build, Build, Build program. Tristan Nadal returns to tell us how Manila's relations with Beijing progressed over the past 6 years.
From infrastructure, COVID-19 response, and trade relations to strategic cooperation and partnerships, ties between the Philippines and China underwent a tremendous transformation over the past 6 years, but not without controversy. On Tuesday, April 5th, President Duterte expressed his gratitude for the China-funded Binondo Intramuros Bridge. The project, worth over 3 billion pesos, is the 16th government-to-government project between Manila and Beijing under the Duterte administration. In 2021, China was the country's largest trading partner and the second biggest source of foreign investments.
The two presidents have established warm relationship in the past 6 years. We expect this kind of warm relationship to be continued.
As the world grapples with the COVID-19 pandemic, China says it has provided the Philippines with over 57 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines with around 4 million shots donated. But the South China Sea dispute continues to test the relationship between the two nations. Duterte has repeatedly said that Manila cannot afford to go to war with Beijing, but he maintains no country should undermine the 2016 arbitral ruling, something China refuses to recognize. Just recently, the Philippines filed a diplomatic protest against China over a close-distance maneuvering by a Chinese Coast Guard vessel in the disputed Scarborough Shoal.
We have maintained very close diplomatic communication over differences. We have agreed to handle differences in a proper manner.
Ambassador Wang, the Philippines and China, we do not have any quarrel. And we can talk about the Spratly Islands and probably the fishing rights of my countrymen. Plain talk, nothing else.
The Foreign Affairs Department also summoned the Chinese ambassador last month after a Chinese Navy ship entered Philippine waters without permission. But China says these issues are not the sum total of its ties with the Philippines. Both sides have also affirmed their commitment to finish the Code of Conduct for the South China Sea. As Duterte meets with Chinese leader Xi Jinping barely 3 months before his term ends, the question now is how the country's next set of leaders will shape the course of Philippine-China relations. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
On to Philippine-U.S. relations. The two countries marked the end of their biggest joint military exercises yet, held amid a backdrop of conflict among other nations, as well as increasing tensions in our region. David Santos walks us through the closing ceremony of the 37th Balikatan.
The U.S. Army deploying a Patriot missile battery in Cagayan as part of the amphibious insertion exercise of this year's Balikatan. While the same system is now in Poland to help deter U.S. aggression, it's the first time ever U.S. sent out overseas one of its most sophisticated air defense systems by sea.
This had nothing to do with current events. We were working on doctrine, capabilities, and capacity that our joint force needs currently and then going forward in a way to deter aggression.
The Philippines is acquiring its own air defense system from Israel.
When you always exercise, you're able to really feel how things are happen so that when the real war erupts, then we can be able to execute these plans effectively.
In just about 2 weeks, both U.S. and Philippine forces showcased a dizzying litany of joint drills. From the live-fire exercises that featured the High-Mobility Artillery Rocket Systems, or HMARS of the U.S., to close-quarters battle, as well as urban firefighting capabilities. Filipino and U.S. troops train each other in patrol tactics, to the use of unmanned aircraft system for surveillance and intel gathering. The American forces also training on critical operations such as refueling aircraft and helicopters, be it by air or on land, by using Philippine facilities as a way station for logistics. All these come days after the Defense Department confirming to CNN Philippines China spied on a joint Philippine and U.S. exercise held earlier this year. Manila filed a diplomatic protest against the incursion of a Chinese Navy ship detected off Palawan in late January.
Ang ginawa nitong barko na to ay meron kasi tayong exercise na nangyayari with the U.S. Force, U.S. Navy, ay binamagmaran niya.
But for Balikatan, which ended on Friday,
there have been no monitored activities whatsoever.
Both forces calling the joint exercises a success in further strengthening the bond that binds them together before and the years to come. David Santos, CNN Philippines.
Still to come after the break, games 2 for both the PBA and PBL finals are underway. We'll tell you which teams are ahead so far. Plus, Las Vegas turns purple for the much-awaited BTS shows kicking off tomorrow. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines in sports. It is another night of finals matchups with the Meralco Bolts currently shooting for their second straight win against Barangay Ginebra in the PBA Governor's Cup at the Mall of Asia Arena. So far, Meralco maintains the lead at the first quarter, 23-20. Heading over now to the Premier Volleyball League, the second finals match at the Inares Center in Antipolo is in favor of Petrogas in the first set with a score of 8-6. But Creamline already has reason for celebration, with Tots Carlos just awarded Most Valuable Player and Best Opposite Spiker of the conference. Go to our social media platforms for the game results later. And just in time for Filipino Food Month, a Philippine cuisine restaurant in the U.S. state of Chicago has earned a Michelin star. Kasama serves local favorites like adobo and pancit bihon with a twist. It's owned by husband and wife Filipino Tim Flores and Korean-American Jeannie Kwan. The Michelin star is considered one of the highest honors in the culinary industry. And music updates now. BTS paints Las Vegas purple to create Pora Hegas. Multiple buildings and figures lit up in the K-pop group's signature color in anticipation of their permission to dance on stage shows in Allegiant Stadium. The concerts are slated for April 8. Member will perform, but BTS's agency announced that Jin's movements will be minimized because he's recovering from finger surgery. The vocalist also sat out choreography for most of the group's Grammy Awards performance on Monday. And legendary progressive rock group Pink Floyd releases new music after 28 years in support of Ukraine. All proceeds of Hey Hey Rise Up go to humanitarian relief for the country. The music video was released today. The song features vocals from Ukrainian musician Andriy Klivnyuk's viral video singing to protest the Russian invasion. And that is it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.